Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr. Justin Searle in the house. Justin, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. I'm so excited to just hang with you, man, and just kind of chat about anything and everything to do with automotive.
I'm excited, too. Thanks for having me. Very excited.
Hey, Justin, for everybody out there who don't know who you are and kind of how you got started in the industry, I thought it would be cool if we kicked off today's podcast with a little origin story. So Justin, I'm super curious. What is the origin story that is Justin?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. I'll try to keep it brief. You know, I don't want to bore anybody, but I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised, and I got into the car business in 2004 out of the Army. I was on active duty in the Army, and I didn't go to college, and I've always prided myself on that I made a good living and have provided for my family very well in the automotive industry without having a college degree. I always wore that as like a badge of honor, I guess, you know, but spent 16 years in the industry, mainly I sold cars for years, and then progressed to management, sales manager, used car manager, general sales manager, general manager. And in December, I got out of the business, and I went to work with my friend Derek, who founded Think Ad Group. And for the last year, I've been a car guy trying to market to people that are like me. So, we say that a lot, like we're not marketing guys in the car business. We're car guys in the marketing business. So I can relate to what managers go through, what it's like. I spent 10 years on the desk, desking deals for a high volume dealership. And it just, we could do a whole podcast on desking, me personally, because I feel like it's such an art form, and I was known for being one of the best around, and I do believe I'm the best desk manager ever in the history of the world, right?
Oh, you know what? I think there we go. I'm into this. Let's do this, because, man, I got all kinds of thoughts and opinions on desking. And, Justin, I had a real similar kind of growing up in the industry as well, right? I mean, I started off the operations side. I pretty much worked every single part of the business you possibly can, from sales to service to BDC to internet operations to floor management to GM to GSM, and then eventually one day actually owned my own dealership. Had a blast being a dealer principal, but, being a young dealer principal, I had 3 kids, something had to give. So ultimately ended up selling the dealerships myself and started the agency. And like you, I've had so much fun helping other dealerships kind of create those marketing strategies, but coming from like an operational experience and understanding of what the hell they actually have to go to. So I am so glad that you brought up desking deals, because it seems to be kind of a hot subject. Like I had a dealership I'm consulting with right now, and they sent me over a bunch of profit and loss statements, and I'm just going, there's something changing here. Like, I mean, and sure enough, I knew it without, just looking at the numbers, but I mean, sure, you could see the exact same thing. It was just that there was a shift. There was a shift in management. There was a shift in the way that they were desking deals, and they were doing it consistently one way, and then they shifted, and you can literally see in the profit and loss statement where that shift was. But I'd like to kind of get your thought and opinion on this, because I think there's so many different variations of it. Before I interject my own, I'm kind of curious from you. Now, look, dude, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I don't want to say we're at the end of it, because we had a chance talking off camera. We're definitely in the middle of it. Let's just say that, right? A lot of things have changed. Lay it out for me. What do you think that desking process looks like, for you, and when we can kind of bounce some ideas off each other?
So, what I've thought a lot about, if I obviously haven't desked through what's going on right now, and I know it's changed. I've heard grosses are higher. You hear that, right? You hear that a lot, that the gross profit's higher because of demand, because of whatever. Maybe they don't want to go through the customer doesn't
inventory levels, depending on which dealership you talk to.
They don't want to make an appointment at 2 different places because it's already going to take a whole day. They just want to get it over with. I can't speak to that, but what I can speak to is that I really do believe it's an art form. And in my mind's eye, at least, I had it mastered. I mean, I was the cat's meow when it came to the desk. And, it was about asking the salesman, no matter their level, you got to treat it's a lot like being a quarterback or a coach. I trained more, and I trained every day. I had meetings every day that I trained, but I trained more right there at that desk when I was loading that salesman's lip or talking to him about, what to say. If they say this, say that. If they object to this, this is what you want to say. I did so much training right there at the desk that that's what I felt like I did all day. I was just coaching. But from the way I structured that deal, by the way the salesman answered my questions, and sometimes my first pencil was a $12,000 deal, and sometimes my first pencil was a $2,000 loss, and that's where I felt like the art form came from. I by the questions I asked, by what happened, by what that floor manager, because I had floor managers that would go in and they'd give me information, and I don't know. I guess I could go on about that for a while, but
no, you're 100% right though. I think desking a deal had more to do with who I was desking for, not necessarily the car I was desking for. You know what I mean? Oh. I'm working with a lot of new managers right now, and I'm finding like what they're desking is they're desking the car. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like they desk the car. Like there's something up with the ar, and it's been in inventory for such a long period of time, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It kind of has this like pre-deceived voodoo about it. So I'm going to desk it a certain way, right? And I always thought that was kind of a messed up way to do it, is desking the deal based on the car. And I always felt like you had to desk the deal based on the customer. You do. And for me to do that, I had to really know that customer. So it was, and of course I had to rely on my team, be able to collect that information. So I think that's actually a good question. And I get the feeling that you're the same. Like you kind of desk the same way. You desk the customer, not the deal. So what kind of information would you require your salespeople? Or maybe even right now, what kind of information would you want? Because look, between me, but look, since me and you have been in the business desking deals, shit's changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I desk deals, the questions I always asked, where are they from? And it'd be on the worksheet, but where, there's so many things. There's this is a crazy analogy. And I used to train this analogy. Okay. And you can edit this out if it sucks. Okay. But here's what I did. Are you familiar with counting cards at blackjack?
Oh yeah. I was never good at it, but I understand it.
Right. You understand the principle, right? So a face card comes out, it's a plus value. A 2 to 8 comes out, it's a minus value. And then there's the neutral cards in between. So as the cards are shown, all the cards are shown, you're running this count in your head, +1, -1, +1, +2, +3, and you're counting, right? So I taught my sales staff, I trained on this. Okay. In blackjack, when they would increase their bets when they were counting the cards, they'd increase their bets as that deck got hot. Okay. So that's how I would judge my swing when I came out of the gate with my first pencil. Okay. So I'll give you an example. And again, you can edit this out. Okay. I'll give you an example. So you have a title in hand. That's +1, right? +1, right? How about this one? They only care about payment.
There you go. You can add another plus right there.
+1, right? But then they say they'd been to 4 Chrysler dealerships before they came to mine. -1, right? You following me? So when you get this deck stacked in your favor, and this is so unethical and so wrong on so many levels, and it's part of the reason why I don't want to do that anymore. But when you get that deck stacked against them is when you take this swing for gross. And they only care about payment. They have a paid off trade. They want to be under $600 a month, and they're looking at a 2010 Corolla. What are you going to do to that? What are you going to do to that customer? You're going to annihilate them.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably that's true. That's where the the ethics part comes in, right?
Absolutely.
Like you can do this ethically. You can desk a deal ethically, or you can desk a deal not ethically, and I've seen it both ways.
There is, and there's so many deals, and profit's profit. I did what I did for my family, and I would probably do it again, but I don't feel right about it. I'll never forget. This is a story that goes back to me selling cars. The first month I sold cars. It was probably my second or third deal. This lady came in. I'll never forget her. And she said, listen, she ran a Pizza Hut. Okay. And she retired. She worked for Pizza Hut for 30 years, from the 70s up through, the early 2000s. She ran this Pizza Hut. She came in, she said, I'm on a fixed income. She was driving I was working at a Toyota store. She was driving a Camry at the time. And she said, I need something less expensive. I want to go down to the Corolla now because I'm going to a fixed income. And I sold her a used Corolla for more than a new one cost. And I
hear you on that one.
I'm brand new in the business, and I just was like, man, and I remember thinking right then and there, it was like, what should I do? And I went home and talked about it, and I didn't feel good about it. I've never felt good about it, because it wasn't the right thing to do, but.
The first dealership I worked at, I've had the opportunity, and you have the opportunity to work at a lot of different dealerships as well. The first dealership I worked at had a culture. In fact, actually all the dealerships, I was very fortunate that all the dealerships I worked at had a very defined culture. But the first one I worked at had a culture around one thing and one thing only, and that was making money. And that's just what it was. Look, agree or disagree, I don't give a crap. Bottom line is there was a clearly defined culture in this business, or in this dealership that I worked at, and that was around money. Look, the sales manager walked around with a roll of cash. The GM walked around with a roll of cash. Yep. The salespeople were walking around with a roll of cash, and they were constantly screwing around with each other and betting each other this amount, this, that. Look, it was all based on money. So I actually had a front row education of what not to do. But no different than you, Justin, man. I had a few deals that just made me feel dirty they just made me feel dirty at the end of the day until I got to another dealership. This is my second dealership I worked at that had a culture around giving a shit about the customer. And boy, did I have to relearn a lot of things. So it's like I went from learning a whole lot of what not to do, then learning a whole lot what to do. And it was the best thing I ever could have done with me. So, I remember I was just sitting at a GM's office the other day, and he's running through these list of applications. He's like, oh, well, this person's hopping back and forth between dealerships. And I'm like, you know what? That's not necessarily a bad thing. Find out why they were hopping. I hopped back and forth between dealerships, but I learned a shitload in between, right? So I learned super fast that instead of swinging for the fences, desking a deal, I had to stop swinging for the fences. So I went from my first dealership A, to dealership B, who now then cared more about the customer than the profitability.
Right.
And I had to be taught how to play a good game of baseball. And as Justin works, when you play a good game of baseball, you don't swing for the fences every single time. We can't be the Babe Ruth of this industry, even though I think most salespeople want to be the Babe. They want to set it out there and go, I'm going right out there, buddy. I'm knocking this thing out of the park. And I had to do that. I had to learn how to line up, all right, the person I was batting up against, similar to what you were talking about earlier. And I had to totally accept the fact that I was going to get an on-base deal, maybe a second, possibly a third, but very seldomly would I ever hit a home run. But I had to play the game. I had to play the game because I had to look at the overall thing, not just a singular transaction. I think that was the fundamental thing that shifted me into it. But hey, man, we've been all in that place where we've done those deals that we weren't overly happy with.
Absolutely.
When was that shift for you? I'm actually kind of curious. When did you realize that you had to play the long game versus the short game?
It was a lot like what you had mentioned, all these sales managers with all this money, and It was weird. I was very young. I was fresh out of the Army, and The whole time I was in the Army, I never worried about money, I guess, because I had, I had a roof over my head. I had a steady paycheck. And the car business was that first reality where I knew that there was something inside of me that there was drive, and I wanted to produce, I wanted to perform. But it was the first time I really realized that the world was out there for the taking. But what's changed so much is I remember when I first became a manager, and I was now I'm getting to be old, but I was so young. I was one of the youngest managers, around my area. And I was still in my late 20s. And a lot of the sales team was older than me. The finance managers were older than me. And what was weird is, for me, it's where that old school mentality was being handed over. And what's crazy now is I remember, and I'm sure you do, I remember when 5, 6, 8 years ago, when we were all talking smack on millennials, myself included. Like, I had this great work ethic. These millennials are the worst. And it's so different, because those millennials are brilliant, and they're the ones that are starting to run the dealerships. And I've seen that change. So I see that old school guy who taught you and me, right? And then we're here in the middle, and then you have the millennials that are now starting to take over, and it's pretty cool to see. And
it's really cool to see. I call it a kind of the transition from the superstar kind of mentality, Like when we were managing our teams, okay, and even prior to it, but even more so when we were managing our teams, right? We had our superstars. You might even remember a couple of the names that worked for you, your superstars, right? You know who I'm talking about. They were the people you knew that you didn't have to worry about. Like they just, oh man, they brought in the gross, they brought in the deals, all right. They were superstars. They were good for their 20 to 30 cars a month. Every single time, I didn't have to babysit them. I didn't have to do any of that. And then there were the people in the middle, and they were the ones that always kind of fight. And then you had the people at the bottom, right? There was 3 kind of different levels of salespeople that we had in our team, right? That's changed, but I think it's changed for the good. I don't think there's a whole hell of a lot of superstars out there anymore. That's either they retired, they've sold their way through all of their clients, and they're out putting around and doing dealer trades. But I'm also looking at, you said millennials. I'm looking into this new audience that's coming into here. They're not interested in being a superstar. No, they don't want to be the 20 to 30 car person, right? Sorry, go ahead. You had something.
This is the best story I have about millennials, and this is when. It boggles my mind. So I have a millennial working for me, and we had demos at my store. And he was one of my top performing guys. Okay. And my top performers, just like you said, the 30 car guys no more. The 4 car guy never lasts, but you have a bunch of these 12, 13, 14 car guys. And he's one of these better guys, maybe he's doing 15, 16 cars a month. Point of the story is we put him in a Cherokee demo. Okay. And we start him out in like a Cherokee, and he's driving around in it. So he starts doing really well. And I said, and this is so different because you and me, I'm assuming you're like me. I want to drive the biggest, baddest, nicest thing humanly possible. You give me the sickest thing, whatever the nicest thing is, that's what I want. Millennials, no way. So this kid, I said to him, hey, you're doing so good. Why don't you take a Grand Cherokee? You can have a Grand Cherokee Limited. Why don't you drive a nice truck, a nice Ram? The kid's like, no, I like my Cherokee. I'll just keep driving Cherokees. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, it's fuel efficient. It's easy to park. But that's
totally
the difference.
True.
Am I right, or that's what they want? That's what they want.
No. Look, 100%. They're looking for more. Look, they want to connect more than they actually want. Look. I hate to say it, but
they want a tiny house, a Cherokee, and have internet, great Wi-Fi.
You know, I mean, I remember when I was a salesperson, and you're from that same generation where you're a salesperson, the commission slips come in, you know, you got your pink slips. I remember getting pink slips. You get pink slips? Yeah. Okay, I got pink slips too.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and we literally sit there and say, okay, you guys all ready? And at lunch, we throw down each other's pink slips and see which one got the most of them, right? And you'd haze the shit out of each other for it, right? And that's just the way that don't happen anymore.
No.
They just don't straight up care about it. And I actually don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I have no beef with it whatsoever, you know, because it's just a different type of player. And I just feel like even in sports, I think sports is running into the same thing. They're running into a different type of player. In our industry, in the automotive industry, we're running into a different type of player. All right, it's not a player that gets super excited about, you know, beating the pants out of the salesperson next to them, right? They want to feel connected. They want to feel a part of the team. All right. Team is more important now today than I think it ever has been before. And I'm curious to see when you saw that shift between that superstar culture to a team culture.
I would say 4 or 5 years ago is when I really saw it switch that way. I mean, you know, and I can honestly say that 4 or 5 years ago is when I realized I really relinquished that fighting the millennial generation. And I really started to embrace it. And we're like, wait a second, these kids are smart. They show up to work most times, you know, but I'm joking, but I really started to realize this is the future. These are the people that are going to be running the country, before we know it. And, so I feel a lot differently now than I did then.
Look, I think we all have had to change, right? Like we've all had to change a little differently there, but you know, but it actually kind of excites me a little bit, you know. I mean, towards the tail end of me owning a dealership, you know, that was where it was at. You know, I like to give you, I want to get your thought on this because you know, I mean, this would have been a little over 5 years ago. All right, I got criticized, and I mean hardcore, especially within the dealership area where I was in, for offering my staff, all right, a 4-day work week that included salary and a bonus structure. Not commission, a bonus structure. So look, I paid salary and I had some seriously documented expectations, like some hardcore expectations. Like, here, you're going to get a salary and here's what I expect for you to even get that salary, right? And that is just so we can meet the customer's expectations. If we're going to exceed the customer's expectations, I'm going to bonus you on those exceeding the customer expectations. Here's how I do it. And then to top it off, I'm going to ask you to work 4-day, 12-hour shifts. And I'm going to want you to take 3 days off. I got ripped apart, all right, in my area for offering that. And I'm curious, and this was, like I said, 5 or 6 years. Now I actually almost find it the norm. I actually see a lot of dealerships do this, but I'm curious to see what are your thoughts? Salary, commission? I want to hear it.
So I have mixed feelings. I do. So it's real. It's very hard for me coming from where I came from to motivate a salesman I like to motivate a salesman based upon gross and volume and a combination of the two, okay? But these days, okay, what's happening is with as competitive as a market it's becoming, with as aggressive as pricing structures are across the country in big cities, it's so difficult to pay a salesman on gross profit when they have no control over what that gross profit is. Now you can train them, you can get them to do a better walk around, a better demo, and you can teach them to build value, etc. But it's so hard because I want to pay them on gross profit, but there was a dealership that I know of personally that they're paid on gross profit and the salesmen are selling 15, 18, 20 cars and they're starving to death. And it doesn't make sense. So I'm on the fence. I have mixed feelings about it. I've worked at dealerships where there's a lot of salary in place for the salesman. And as a desk manager who spent so many years desking, I wanted them paid on that gross because I could see the difference in those grosses when they were paid on the gross, you know?
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, Justin, between me and you, a lot has changed since desking deals. I mean, I actually struggle with the fact just in the last 7 or 8 years, how much control does a salesperson, let alone a sales manager, actually have in the profitability of a damn car?
It's tough.
I mean,
It's all
margins, yeah. I mean, margins have gotten so stupid tight over the years. It's just to the point where it's like, you have control this little tiny bit.
What's happened is those front end grosses have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, and the back end grosses have gone up and up and up and up and up because the dealers are forced to make that money in finance. Because and then there's all that mess of they're overcharging in finance, they're overcharging for the warranties, they're holding the points they shouldn't be holding. It's very difficult to find that balance where you treat customers right, you make a decent, fair profit, and it's tough, very tough. And that pay plan is directly correlated to that gross,
And I'm so with you on that. And see, that's what actually held me up. Look, I was a person that started in the industry as commission. I lived and died by my pink slips. So, the day I became a dealer principal and I decided to throw that out the window, it didn't come, it wasn't like an overnight decision. It was like, I had to have some serious discussion and conversation around this. And I knew, here's how it was for me. And I'm not saying, this is for me. This is how it was for me. All right. My goal and objective at the end of the day was for that customer to have the same experience, no matter if they were coming to buy a top of the line Mitsubishi Outlander, I had a Mitsubishi store, or an entry level Mitsubishi Mirage, which if I was lucky if I made $400 on the stupid thing. Right. It's like, but it didn't matter. It did not matter the profitability. I just didn't want the profitability to ever affect that customer experience. So for me, I went drastic and I threw the whole thing out the window and said, look, gross profit is never going to be a part of our salary or a part of our bonuses or part of our commissions. And I started creating bonuses around people's efforts, not necessarily the results. And I'm not gonna lie, Justin, I attracted a significantly young people. I had a lot of, older sales guys working for me. They dipped. I'm out of here. I'm going to go work for another dealership. Okay, that's fine. But I did attract a significantly younger team, because I think of the pay plan and the structure I put to place. But the thing I'd never expected was how close these people were going to become as family and team members. Holy crap. Yeah. Even today I'm still dumbfounded. Just the sheer of just wanting to help each other and take care of each other. I've only seen it in a handful of other dealerships all over the place. So here's my big question. I get to ask you. All right. Yeah. And I'll put you to it, dude. All right. Here's your quote. Okay. Salary or commission? Why or why not?
I gotta say, commission, but I am a big proponent of paying a salesperson on front end and back end profit. Okay. So the last dealership I was the general manager of, I made that change when I got there because I know, just like I said, how that front end gross is going down, the back end gross is going up. It's important to get them to buy in, and it's important to get them to want to sell those warranties. And I saw the shift from, the salesman selling warranties before it ever got back to the finance office and all that stuff because they knew they were paid on it. So I'm going to say commission. I guess I'm still old school.
Man, that's totally cool. It's all good, and I don't think there's necessarily a wrong or right one. I think it's just, it's whatever one you decide to go. If you can maintain, all right, the customer experience at the center of that, all right. I just find too often it's easy to default to commission, all right, because it operationally takes care of certain things. So instead of me training and coaching on the experience, it almost kind of automatically, that my pay structure will ensure that they do what they need to do, and they'll say what they need to say, and they'll fill out the paperwork they need to say, they need to fill out, and they'll bring me the documentation they need out, because it you know what I mean. So like I'm totally open either way. I just so here I'm going to throw another curveball at you, because here is a new model. All right, that I've only just started recently seeing, and it's because of COVID. A brand new model. I'm gonna throw it at you, and I want to get your thoughts and opinions on it. Okay. All right. I have an owner. He owns about 3 or 4 rooftops. They're smaller dealerships. They're not metropolitan dealerships, so they're kind of out country. Let's call them country dealerships, right? Dealership wise, the retail units, they probably only retail about 600 to maybe 700 units a year. Okay. They got maybe 4 or 5 people working the floor. So these are small, tight dealerships. Yeah. All right. Because of what's been going on with COVID and kind of this uncertainty of efforts kind of back and forth, this is what they decided to do. They decided to take the salesperson's position and role and combine it with the service advisor. So the salesperson and the service advisor are now one. And that individual is being bonused and commissioned or paid on both their sales efforts and their service efforts. Initial thoughts. I'm curious what you think.
I mean, the first thing I think is that a service writer, when you walk into a dealership, who are you more likely to see not busy, a service writer or a sales associate? Salesman, right? So those service writers, now I guess if it's, I would just think it would be almost impossible to give the service customer the experience they deserve if you have to take an hour away or an hour and a half away to handle a sales process. So not to mention the sales customer is not going to get the experience he deserves when he's spending 40 grand on a car. Very, very, very different. I just see, at the dealerships I've worked at, service writers.
So I forgot to mention one thing. They're all working as a team. So not as an individual. They're all working as a team. I forgot to throw that one in there. So
service writer running over, taking it up, and then
So the gross profit that's being generated from the service side and the gross profit that's being generated from the sales side is being collectively combined as a team.
They're pooling tips.
Exactly. I'm not saying this is a right or wrong one. I'm just curious to see what your thoughts are.
Well, now that's different. Okay, so you're going to have so there's two sides of it. On one hand, you're going to say, okay, well, they're going to make sure that everybody gets the good experience but then you're going to have those dirt balls who want to they can rely on somebody else taking care of a customer. I don't have to take care of a customer. I'm going to get paid anyway. Very interesting, though. I'll tell you that. It's interesting. Definitely something I would need to wrap my head around. But I think they're, again, just like the pay structure we were talking about, pros and cons, right? You gotta
look. I'm with you on that. And I don't know about you, Justin, but when I grew up, I was a Boy Scout. And, it was like okay, you were too.
I was only for a couple years. I was a Weebelo.
Oh, you were, okay. Yeah, you were really early on, dude. I made it to Eagle. Yeah. I was one of those really geeky, hardcore high school Boy Scouts.
Oh, yeah. High school. My friend in high school was an Eagle Scout, and I tortured him about it.
But you know what, though? What taught me is always being prepared, right? I mean, it's the whole core of everything is to be prepared for that unknown. So here's kind of just puts me into my next question then for you, kind of lays me up for that. Your thoughts and opinions, all right, from how a dealership should be prepared, all right, for the possibility of a second closure. And we're going to break this down both into operations and marketing. So let's start with operations, and then we'll move over to marketing. All right. Look, regardless if it happens or not, we have to have the conversation,
Sure. Absolutely.
So kind of what would you say would be the top 3 or 4, maybe 5 things that you would recommend for a dealership to seriously start having conversations around? All right, so that they're prepared for this possible second closure. We'll start with operations, then we'll go to marketing. All right, so we'll start with operations. Justin?
So operationally, there were some definite flaws out there the first go around. And I can tell you, in my opinion, the first flaw that I saw operationally from dealerships that they really botched was personnel. And it was because, a lot of reasons. It was a lot of reasons. What do they do with, and so many dealerships have lost great employees, not because they had to be laid off, which is understandable, but it was the way that it went down. Just, I don't know. So you got to be talking, okay, let's have a plan of this. If this happens again, what are we going to do with personnel? Because without personnel, we don't have a dealership. And I feel like dealers just thought too many people were expendable, it just wasn't handled the right way. Second of all, inventory. So we've seen what's happened to the used car market. We've seen what's happened to the new car market. We've seen the new car shortages all across the U.S., I'm sure Canada as well. Which I have a question for you, by the way.
Shoot, what you got?
Why in Canada they say Chrysler?
Dude, it's the same way we also say Nissan. Or
do you say
Nissan? Nissan or Nissan? Or how about Mazda? Mazda.
I've heard a lot of Chrysler. What is that?
I have no idea. That's the screwy part of being who I am. It's because I am an American. Right. Whenever I'm up here.
Where are you from originally?
Boise, Idaho. But I grew up all over the western part of the United States. Actually, if I had to call a home, I'd say Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Southwest. Okay. I grew up on green chili and red chili burritos, man. But seriously though, I when I'm in the States, I get introduced as the Canadian. When I'm here in Canada, I get introduced as the American. I have no freaking clue what I am. Yeah, so I didn't want to stop you there. Go ahead though. But
back to operationally. So first, personnel. Handle that personnel. Like, if you got to lay them off, okay, but communicate with them, keep them updated, tell them they're valuable to you, tell them you don't have another choice, communicate with them.
Yeah, communication was a big one.
That was a huge one. Just say, hey, Joan, you're so important to us. I can't wait to be able to call you back. Just communicate, take care of them, even if they're not coming to work every day, as best you can. Inventory. Prepare for inventory. Prepare. And what can you do? Everybody's in the same boat, I guess. So what would I do is I'd sit with my management team and say, what are we going to do? What are we going to do if the plant shuts down for another 6 months? What's our plan? What's our strategy?
Exactly. Like how do you even respond to that? Right. I mean, look,
there might not be a way, but at least just tackling it.
Have the bloody conversation. Right. I mean, look, the first closure happened. Okay. And we all got hit just the same way. We all got hit. It was literally a sucker punch right across the face. We all took it. All right. We all dealt with it in different ways. Some people grinned and asked for another. Others stuck their head in the sand and went la 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 until the damn thing was over. Right. So it's everyone handled it differently. And I'm not going to say there was a wrong or right way to handle it. Okay. Yeah. But now if we're staring down the barrel of a second one, shit, better. Right? Yeah. You should know better. Moving into this, the conversation needs to be had at the dealership right now. What if this was to happen again? What if that was to happen? All right. Are we prepared for this? And that's where my blood starts to boil a little bit and my 4-letter words start to come out really quick, because it's just, I get super upset because I got to be honest with you, Justin, my conversation with a lot of dealerships, especially coming off of August, was this false sense of success.
Yeah.
I had a lot of dealerships out there, man, that felt they knocked it out of the freaking park.
Yep.
I sold cars. And I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. All right. You've been closed for 4 or 5 months, and you sold some cars. You had some inventory, right? But, now they're filling it in September. They're like, oh no, maybe I'm not as big and powerful as I thought, but it's just like, it's just, I get upset when we're not having, like, I call it full belly syndrome. I don't know if you ever heard me use this term before. I love this term. I remember as a salesperson, hell, this even happened to me from times, right? It's like, I'd come off a really good month and I was full. I made that $10,000-$12,000 check. Oh, that was good. And you kind of go into the next month, maybe not pushing as hard or working as hard. And I hate to say it right now, Justin, but my fear is that there's a lot of full belly syndrome out there. So the conversations around being prepared is not happening. And frankly, it's pissing me the fuck off.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And the next thing that I would say in that line of operationally, and this is my shameless plug for my company, is did their customers know? Did their customers know? And did they know when they were open? Did they know what their new service hours were? Did they know that sales was by appointment only? No. In most cases, they didn't. Okay, the customer stumbles on their website and sees that, but and that's what Think Ad Group does, is we specialize not in bringing in new leads. We handle the leads that you've already had, you've already dealt with, your owner base, your sales owner base, your service owner base, your parts database, and your unsold follow-up. And that's what we do. We take all that low-lying fruit that's in there, and we can get them a message, but we can keep them updated what's going on, but we can also get deals from that.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up. And by the way, I love your shameless plug. Go see Justin, my buddy over at Think, if you're in the States. And if you're in Canada, you better see me. Just messing with you.
That's okay.
But no, seriously though, like going into the marketing space, like I think there were some lessons learned from the operations. I think that's a very valuable lesson learned from the marketing side. I'm sure there's probably 2 or 3 others. What other lessons do you think that we need to start having conversations around right this moment, so that we are prepared in case we run into a second closure from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, so if there's a second closure, you're going to run into those new car inventory issues. So if you're a dealer of any real size, any small to medium to large, I would start hedging my bets on the used car market. Now it could get stale and it could sit there, and I understand that, but I would be marketing to my database trying to get those trades. You're going to buy them right. You're not going to pay too much for them, because you're trading them, or buying them. So I would really focus on trying to get some inventory set up for when I open back up again, and I can definitely help you there. I'm sure you can too. But what else?
No, I think inventory is a big one, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
it's just, again, it's all about just being prepared. Plus, I also think, I'm going to throw another one at you, and I'm sure you probably agree with me on this one too. Is from a marketing perspective, don't stop. That's like kind of like you know what I mean. Like, here's the way I look at it: a good investor in a down market doesn't stop investing.
Nope.
Like, they don't. In fact, actually, a smart investor continues to invest throughout a down market. Now, they may shift in what they're investing into. Now, I'm sure you guys probably saw something similar that we saw. What we saw during that closure, right, where the dealerships that were still actively participating in their marketing efforts, we saw some of the lowest cost lead forms, the lowest cost engagement rates, the lowest cost video views. I mean, look, I hate to say it, it is what it is, but it's the same thing investing. All right. There were a lot of people that got scared shitless and ran for the hills and backed out. And then the people that were continuing to put back into the system reaped hugely with low cost, high value type engagement, attention, and leads. So it's like, I don't want to see anybody thinking that, oh no, we closed, so I'm going to shut everything down again. It's like, I think from a marketing perspective, and this kind of ties into both marketing and operations, and I would like to get your thoughts on this too, is that we got to get really freaking serious about a real true internet operations department within our dealership. And I know there are some out there that already exist, and I applaud you for already having it. I ran one almost 13 years ago, so mind-boggling today there's still a bunch of dealerships that don't have this department. Now, it's not a BDC, people. Let me make this really perfectly clear. It's not a BDC. Internet operations and BDC are entirely different. Business development actually is in the name. They're there to develop you new business. Your internet operations department is actually there to handle the people that have chosen to communicate with you digitally versus over the phone or in person. And I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on that. Moving forward, how do you think we need to structure or train a more internet department, knowing that possibility of closure is going to force us to engage that way?
Yeah, so when I think of this, I think of and I won't mention any names, but a customer of mine that is a big name dealership here in Pennsylvania, and they are going to they completely changed the way they do business, and they have no intention of going back. And their whole, they said, wait a second. And this is unfortunate because you don't want to see anybody lose jobs, but they said, wait a second, I don't need as many employees. I can do appointment only sales. I can be more profitable. I can have build an internet team, and anybody that wants to be on my sales team is going to be an internet team member. But I mean, they totally changed the way they do business, and they're not changing back. And it is, and they get it. They definitely get it. And I know for sure if they face a second closing, they'll be fine. But the internet, those internet leads, when I got out, we were trying to close those internet leads at 15%. That was kind of that's the kind of this average. And I've thought about that so much since, as like, is that number 25% now? Because it probably should be, because so many more people are shopping from home, or should it be less? I don't know. What do you think? Sorry.
I'm actually seeing closing ratios increase across the board. Right now, okay. Now let's say closing ratios increasing across the board between the dealerships that actually track this shit versus the ones that just kind of randomly throw a number at you. You ever been in those meetings? So what's your internet lead closing ratio? I'm about or approximately. I'm like, you know what? Just don't even finish answering that fucking question. I'll move on to another one. That still blows my mind. Like, I gotta admit, between me and you, Justin, it still blows my mind that it's 2020 and somehow we're still not able to effectively measure every single at-bat opportunity that our dealership has. But that's a whole nother podcast right there. That's a whole nother podcast. Go on about that for a while too. But with that said, though, I have seen dealerships right now that are closing at 70%. I've seen internet lead closing ratios as high as 30%. Yep. And it's, the cool thing is the dealerships know that it's not them. It's just the way things are. Like, I mean, look, traffic's down 25% across the board for all 117 clients we have, right? I mean, literally on average, it's 25%, 24.3, I think was what the number we actually came up with was. But regardless, right? Traffic's down, closing ratios are up. So that means the people are coming into the door. Look at that. Dude, it's a pandemic. I don't know if you remember, but it's a pandemic out there. I think anybody that's actually walking through the door is actually pretty freaking serious about possibly purchasing and driving away that day with something. And I think it's no different than an internet lead. Look, if someone's submitting something, they're pretty serious right now. We're not getting a whole whack ton of, inquiries that go totally dark. Our communication ratios. So our lead to communication ratios have also almost doubled. Like, this is just the world we're in right now.
You're not handling those internet leads perfectly, then just close up shop, because that's where it's all at. And I'll tell you right now, if you and I sent 5 web leads out to 5 different dealerships each right now, they're not handling them the way they should be. That's
well, I can guarantee you that, because we actually do a secret shopping on our existing database on a regular basis. And, if I smell a template, I lose my bloody mind. And I'm the first one to write out a 4-letter word email to the general manager going, do you know what I just got back? But it's not fair to the consumer. Like, I'm sorry, but I think anybody out there right now that's listening to this show right now and actively uses templates, just stop listening and just stop selling cars.
Hang up.
Like really? You know what I mean? So look, I'm all for standardizing communication efforts. I have no beef whatsoever in standardizing communication efforts, right? But if you are copying and pasting shit into a body of an email and that's how you respond to things, a customer smells that, they know that, and all you are telling that customer is, I just don't give enough about you as an individual to physically write something out that's unique to you as a person.
Yep. You got company.
I'll be in a little bit. Gotta love those kids. It's dinner time, right? They're like, where's my food at? And you know what, though? Perfect timing, actually, because I know we're getting toward the tail end of our time today. But Justin, before I let you go, though, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now, and would love to connect with you and kind of follow on with your guys' journey and join one of your guys' think tanks, which, by the way, Thursdays, right?
Every Thursday night. Yeah.
Every Thursday night, get your drink on. Join Justin and the entire team over at Think Tank for just a fun time. You guys have to check this out. But Justin, what is the best way to connect with you if anybody would like to do so?
Yeah, we're pretty easy to find. You can find us at thinkadgroup.com. And that's also where the link is to our Thursday night Zoom call. It's called Think Tank Thirsty Thursdays. We have a cocktail or coffee, whatever you're into, 9 p.m. Eastern every Thursday night. If you go to thinkadgroup.com, look for the swag page, and there's a link directly to drop you right into the Think Tank. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Derek Perez, the founder of our company, connect with him. Evelyn Kelly, my wife and associate that works with us. We're real easy to find, so please check us out. If you want some of our swag, you got to come to the Think Tank. It's all free. We never charge anybody for it. So that's.
I was told that there's some special edition orange something or another.
I know. I better.
That might be coming my way. I'm just.
Yeah. Coming your way. Yeah.
Hey, Justin, man, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been an absolute blast. You have yourself an amazing day.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy Mob Podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to sign up to be a mobster at strategymob.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.